Hello again. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy, and today's class is adding Windows computers to a Windows Server 2012 domain. So we are finally starting to get to the fun stuff. We are finally getting to the point where we have a real, honest-to-God domain. So we've installed the Windows Server operating system at this point. We've navigated through it. We know how to get through the Windows Server operating system. We've installed Active Directory, which allowed us to create our domain. So our server is now a domain controller. When we did that, we also installed DNS, Domain Name System Services, so that we can map IP addresses to domain names, and we installed DHCP, which allows us to give out dynamic IP addresses. So right now we have a server, but we don't have any client computers. So what makes a domain is both the Active Directory domain controllers and servers, but also the client computers and users. So today we are going to be adding our first client computer to the domain. So it's very important to understand is that when you're creating this domain is that you actually have to add client computers to the domain. You have to join them to the domain. So you could have an Active Directory domain controller and a Windows 8 professional computer sitting on the same network, but unless that Windows 8 professional computer has been joined to the Active Directory domain, they will not be able to do security and all of that kind of stuff. So the big purpose of Active Directory, remember, is to have a central place for administration for things like permissions, security policies, to be able to give people access to resources or to be able to deny them access to resources. So once we've created the domain controller, we have to add the client computers to be able to build out that domain. So today I'm going to be showing you a Windows 8 professional computer being added to the domain. If you're going to be adding a computer to the domain, what is very important to understand in the Windows world is that you have to use a Business Edition version of the client operating system. What that means is you can use XP Professional, you can use Vista Business Edition or Vista Ultimate Edition, you can use Windows 7 Business Edition or Enterprise Edition, you can use Windows 8 Professional Edition or Enterprise Edition. You cannot use the home version, so XP Home, Vista Home Premium, 7 Home Premium. Those client operating systems do not have the component that allows those computers to be able to be joined to a domain. So the first thing that you have to remember is that you have to be using a business operating system. Yes, and basically what that means is Microsoft wants to charge you an extra $30 just so you can add the computer to the domain. You know, what are you going to do about it? That's just the way it is. So today I'm going to be showing you this on Windows 8 Professional. It's basically the same thing, whether you're using Windows 8 Professional, Windows 7 Business Edition, Windows Vista Business Edition, XP Professional. Basically, you're going to go through approximately the same wizard. If you've never done this before and you're using a Windows 7 machine, just go onto Google and take a look. Again, basically the same. As with everything slightly different, I'm just going to be showing you with Windows 8 today. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go over to our little digital whiteboard just so I can make sure you guys understand what's going on before we actually add the computer to the domain. So what we have created so far is we have a domain controller. We have an Active Directory domain controller that does Active Directory and DNS and DHCP. So basically it's Active Directory, domain name, resolution, and being able to give out dynamic IP addresses. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a computer to the Active Directory domain. So when I created this domain controller, I created a domain called etcg.com. When you created your domain, you could have named it whatever you wanted. So I created mine, called it etcg.com. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be adding the client computer. We're going to be joining the client computer to the domain. Why this is important is once we have joined the client computer to the domain, then all of the security responsibility is the problem of the domain controller. So right now, when you have a normal client computer, all the user accounts, the security, all of that is on each individual computer. Now, if you're dealing with 50 computers or 100 computers or 10,000 computers, if all of the information resides on each individual computer, that means you would have to go to each individual computer to make any changes. So if a user needs to change their password, you would have to go to each individual computer. By creating a domain, what that means is you can just interact with the Active Directory services and be able to make modifications to computers all throughout the network. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding this client computer, we're going to be joining it to the domain so all of the security can be dealt with. So what we're going to have at the end of the day is we will have domain user accounts. So that means we can just go to an Active Directory domain controller, we can create a domain user, and then they can log into any computers that we give them access to, and we don't have to go to each and every single computer to actually do the configuration. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be joining the computers to the domains. So what I have set up right now, I have got, just so you guys understand what my lab environment is like, so you guys don't get confused. Right now I have one really high-powered desktop computer that I'm using VirtualBox for virtualization on. So I have multiple instances of operating systems, all within this virtualized environment. If you guys are not using VirtualBox, and you just have multiple computers, basically all you need is you need one computer with a server operating system installed with Active Directory, DNS, and DHCP. Then you need a Windows 8 professional computer. You need those connected to a switch, and then it's probably good to have a router on the network. So this is all very basic networking stuff. And again, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, we are at the intermediate level. So, you know, go back and learn about switches and routers and stuff, because we're not really going to talk about that a lot today. So what I'm showing you today, though, just so you can conceptualize what's going on so you don't get confused, is I have one desktop computer that has these multiple instances of these operating systems in VirtualBox on it, and they are connected to a virtual network that way. But one way or another, you need a server computer, you need a Windows 8 professional computer connected to a switch somehow. So that's just so you guys understand what's going on there. So let's go over and actually take a look at the system now, so we can start talking about it. So okay, so right now we are looking and we are at my Windows 8 computer. So this is the Windows 8 Enterprise Evaluation Edition computer that I built before. So it's been around a little while now. So just so you guys can see, right now this computer is not part of the domain. So if I go to search, I go to apps, I go system, then I go down to settings, what we're looking for is we're looking for the system configuration page. So we're going to click on system. And from here, we can look at the information about this computer. And right now, this is what we are interested in today. Computer name, domain, and workgroup settings. So we have computer name, test-PC, full computer name, test-PC, and work group is work group. So we are going to be changing this today. We're going to be putting this computer into a domain. So let me minimize this, and now let's go over to the server. So this is my server 2012. So this is the server that has the Active Directory, the DNS, and the DHCP installed on it. So what we are going to be doing today is we are going to be going over to this little tools drop down, and what we are looking for today is Active Directory users and computers. So this is what you're going to be doing to manage users and computers within the Active Directory environment. So tools, Active Directory users and computers. So we click on this and we are going to get the nice MMC snap-in. So these are the Microsoft Management Consoles, the snap-ins. Now depending on what's setting, you know, whether or not you've been in this before, these little drop downs will either be open or closed. The main thing, what we want to look for, is we want to go to our domain. So my domain, again, as I said, was called etcg.com. So this is what we are dealing with today, and we are going to click the little arrow on the left-hand side. Let me expand this out for you. So now, as always, we're going to get a lot of different things here. So we get built-in, these are built-in accounts. We're not going to worry about that today. Computers, this is what we are going to worry about today. So this is a listing of all of the computers that are members of the domains. So when you create the domain, you create both user accounts and computer accounts. So every computer that's a member of the domain has an account on the system. So once we've created an account, that will be here. We can also look and we can see the domain controllers. So right now I only have one domain controller, server, computer, blah, blah, blah. Principals we're not worried about, service accounts we're not worried about, users we'll talk about probably in the next class. So these are the different users within this Active Directory system. So the user that we're dealing with today is the administrator. So that's what we're dealing with today. So these are the computers. So right now we're going to go back to our Windows 8 computer so that we can add it to the domain. So I'm just going to minimize this. And I'm going to go back to my Windows 8 computer. So right now, you know, I have this box is open, and from here I can start adding this to the domain. But before I add it to the domain, I want to check something. I want to make sure I haven't done something really dumb. Now, as I've talked about before in the other classes, you want to make sure that you have turned off any other DHCP server on the network. So your router, your ISP modem, has a DHCP server built into it. You want to make sure that thing is turned off because you can't, well, you can, but it will cause a mess. You do not want two different DHCP servers on the network. So what you're going to do to make sure that you don't have any other DHCP servers on the network other than the Server 2012 DHCP server is we're going to go to the command prompt and we're going to type in ipconfig. Then we're just going to press enter. Now what we are looking for is, see this connection specific DNS suffix? See how that says etcg.com? What that means is that I'm pulling this DHCP address from my 2012 server. So although this is not a member of the domain yet, it can pull that DHCP IP address, and it has pulled it from my server. So if this says anything other than your domain, then you need to go hunt down the DHCP server and turn it off. So the only DHCP server that can be on the network right now is the one that should be configured on your 2012 server. If anything else shows up here, that's its own networking problem. You have to turn off the other DHCP server, make sure the DHCP server on your Windows 2012 server is running, and then come back. So once you've made sure you've pulled an IP address from the proper DHCP server, then we're going to go, and here we are at the system page, and all we need to do is go here and click on this link that says change settings. So we click on this link, and then we get the system properties. So anybody that's done Windows for a long time has probably seen this. I think this has been around since like Windows 95. So this system property page has been around for a long time. What we are going to be doing is we want to use Wizard to join a domain or work group. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this network ID button. This is the one we want to click on. So we click on this, and then basically we just go through and start doing next. So this computer is part of a business network. I use it to connect to other computers at work. So it's part of a business network. Yes. So we hit next. My company uses a network with a domain. Yes. Next. So all the information you're going to need. So what you're going to need is you're going to need the administrator username, so administrator, and the password for your administrator account that you created for that Windows 2012 server, and you're going to need your domain name, you know, whatever it is, etcg.com. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click next. Type the username, password, and domain name for your domain account. So what we're going to do is we're going to do administrator. So that is my domain account administrator. So not this particular computer. What is the domain information? Then the password, whatever that is. And then the domain name. So what we need is etcg.com or whatever your domain name is. So this is all the domain information. Whatever you plugged into this computer before, don't worry about this. This is the domain. This is the stuff from the server. Then what we're going to do is we're going to click Next. And then it's going to say type the computer name and computer domain. So Windows cannot find an account for your computer in etcg.com. So you can create a computer account before you add the computer to the network, but I figure why do that? That's just extra headache. You can also just add your computer account directly when you join it. So what you do is you just leave your computer name. So whatever you want this computer name to be, I'm just going to leave it as it is, test-pc, and again, the domain, so etcg.com. So test-pc will be added to etcg.com or whatever your domain is. Next. Now it's going to ask you for an account with permission to join to the domain. So that will be that administrator account on the server. And so that's administrator, whatever the password is, and the domain, etcg.com. Then all we're going to do is we're going to click Next or OK. So now it's going to ask, do you want to add the following domain user account to this computer? So if we're in a real domain environment, there will be multiple user accounts on the network. We may want to add a different user account, but right now we are simply going to add our particular user to this computer and click Next. Then it's going to say what level access do you want for this specific computer, and we are going to make it an administrator right now just to make our life easier. Click Next and click Finish. Then what we're going to do is we're going to click OK. Make sure you click OK. You'll notice changes will take effect after you restart this computer. This is a very important thing. It's these little stupid things people forget about. They go, oh, okay, and then they go about their life and they don't restart the computer, and then it will not become a part of the domain. So what we're going to do is we're going to restart now. So during this restart process, it will go through and it will change the configurations to make this part of the domain. So we just sit here, we watch a little thing spin around, blah, blah, blah. And let's see here. It should come up in a second. So there we go. And so now you can see up here for the username, it now doesn't say user, it says etcg.com/administrator. So that is now the user on this computer. So I can use my administrator password and now log into the system. And depending on what you've done with the computer before, it may go through a little process. But now we can see that as the administrator, we are logged onto the system. So the domain administrator account is logged onto the system. If we go up, we do the search thing again, we go back to System, we go to Settings, we go to System, we will now see under computer name, domain, and workgroup settings that we are now part of the etcg.com domain. So the full computer name is now test-pc.etcg.com. So this computer is now part of the domain. Now if we go back, we minimize this, we go back to the server, we can go back to the computers, do a refresh, and we will now see that the test-pc now has a computer account in this domain, and we can go in and we can take a look at the properties. So this is going to be some more complicated stuff we'll do in the future, but we can now see that this is in fact a member of the domain, and now we can start playing with the computer and making configuration changes and such. So that really is all there is to adding a computer to the domain. So the main thing to remember is that you have to have a Business Edition Windows computer to add it to the domain this way. So again, XP Professional, Vista Business Edition, 7, is it business or professional, 8 professional, ultimate editions. You cannot use any of the home versions. If you're using Windows 8, all you do is you go to search, you go to system, you go to change, and then you go through and basically you run through the wizard. Past making sure that you're using a business grade operating system, also make sure that the DHCP address that your client computer has received has come from the Windows server and not from a router or an ISP modem or some other DHCP server that is floating out there. It's very important. Remember to turn off any other DHCP servers on the network or you will have all kinds of problems. So basically what we did today is we joined this Windows 8 PC to the domain, and then we were able to log into that Windows 8 PC using our domain administrator account. So when we go into the next class and we start adding users and playing with users, you will see how this becomes, you know, pretty powerful pretty quick. So basically any user can just sit down at a computer, they can log in, and as long as it's a member of the domain, they automatically get all the security policies and all the resources and all the permissions and all of that, and you don't have to sit at that computer. You can just do all the configurations from the domain controller, and it makes life really easy. So this class was adding a Windows computer to a Windows Server 2012 domain. At this point you can add Mac computers, Mac OS X, you can add Linux, you can add Unix to Active Directory domains, but those are their own classes, and so that will be something we'll deal with at another time. This is just for the Windows computers, which frankly is what you'll be dealing with most of the time anyway. So as always, I enjoy teaching this class and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.